All right. Welcome to the Worst of the Best podcast. I am your host, and with me today, I consider a very special guest. His name is Karl, and he's the main host, the creative mind, the genius, whatever you want to call it, behind the Who Are These Podcasts podcast. Karl, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I don't like that you said I consider him to be a special guest. You probably don't give a shit, but I think it's a cool guest. Like, assume that other people also think it's pretty cool that I'm doing the show. Please, just fake it for me.
Well, I've interviewed people on my other podcast. I have a Rocky Series podcast. I've interviewed people like Bill Conti and Vince DiCola. Oscar winners, no big deal. But you are you're right below. No, I'm just joking. Well, I did, but you're right.
I'm name dropping early on in the episode.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. I am actually so honored you did that. Okay, I will say I'm gushing. Look, I'm blushing. This is terrible. I am gushing a little bit. I know you're not supposed to gush when you're talking to your people that you enjoy, but I'm gushing a little bit because I did discover your podcast by accident. I was on a podcast group on Facebook, and I was concerned because I do a lot of music on my podcast. I do like music reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, people are going on and saying, oh, you can't do music. There's copyrights and stuff. And I'm like, really? I'm a small time podcast. Who's going to come after me for my what, And so anyways, they're saying, oh, I listen to a podcast. This guy was saying they do like other people's podcasts. They rip other people's they take clips from podcasts and they do music clips. They've done it all. I'm like, who are these guys? I kind of want to see what they're doing to see if I'm anywhere close to what they're kind of doing. And it was your podcast. And so nice. I'm a purist, so I started at the very beginning, and this was like 4 months ago, and I saw there's like 200 episodes. But after the first episode, Karl, I admit right away, I was legitimately laughing, and I am not an easy guy to make laugh. I'm one of those people. I'm a hard sell. Like when it comes to comedy, you're funny, and you're good at what you do, and so I'm a little bit nervous because ironically, what you do on your show is you listen to other podcasts and you criticize, quite frankly, in a humorous way, in a roasting way, the good and the bad of their show. So this is kind of weirdly meta for me to have you on my show. So yeah. Anyways,
I'll tell you this. Relax. I'm on your side today. All right, so you can relax.
All right.
No worries. It's funny. I was on Chrissy Mayer's show last week, and she started off with a couple ad reads, and she kind of stumbled through them, and then she goes, "I'm sorry, I'm nervous doing this in front of you." And I get it. We're pretty brutal to podcasters. It makes sense.
Well, you are, and you're fair. That's the thing. And I think in all your criticisms is you're fair. I don't think you've ever said anything that I've heard that wasn't true, in my opinion.
We exaggerate from time to time. I mean, I'm trying to find the funny angle on things, but that is true. If people do things well, I do say what they do well.
Now, were you podcasting before? Did you do a podcast before? Who Are These Podcasts?
No, Who Are These Podcasts was my first endeavor.
Boy, you just hit the ground running. Like, what was your experience for... I'm sure you've maybe mentioned your podcast, but after 200 episodes, I don't remember every detail of your life. Unlike some of the people in your Reddit. But what was your broadcast history or anything? Or
I actually don't talk about my personal life on the show, which is one of the things that I take pride in. A lot of people talk a lot about themselves. It's like boring. All right, whatever. No, I didn't have any broadcast experience. I play in bands all my life, and I've been on the radio, like local radio shows, quite a bit to promote shows and albums and things like that. So I have that experience, but no, I didn't have any experience with doing a show or running a show. And in fact, when we first started out, Kevin and I did the show together. We recorded 3 or 4 episodes that we never released because we just wanted to see if we could get it to work. And we decided the first time through probably won't be the best. The second time's not great. The third time's not working. But eventually we did an episode where we both talked afterwards. I'm like, I think that's good enough, right? All right, yeah, we'll start putting these out then. And we banked a few and then launched it.
Was there any other titles you had for your podcast, or was that the first one right away?
That was the first one right away.
I have a second pick that might have worked as well.
Okay, what do you got?
Why are these podcasts?
Why are these podcasts is also a good question.
Because that's the majority of all of them. There's only been a couple that you've legitimately enjoyed.
Yeah, why is actually a question that I typically ask. Why does this exist? And the answer is usually narcissism or advertising revenue is usually the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have good news is I have no ad reads. I probably have Seamus-like numbers, but I'm not like him. I think I'm a little bit more self-aware than Seamus, but it's funny, when you were ragging on Seamus's numbers, I was like, oof, maybe he won't come on the show. But I think I'm a little bit more self-aware.
if you're doing 100 downloads in a week, that's pretty impressive, my friend.
Oh wow, look at me. I'm rolling.
My Shameless numbers.
I should be getting that anchor money pretty quickly here.
Yeah, right.
So as I usually do with the guests, if I have a guest host from another podcast, I never want to make sure that I'm a fan of the show. I don't say that lightly. I really am a fan of your show, and I want everyone to check you out. But stand by for your bandwidth. What was it? Stuttering John that said his bandwidth couldn't handle the downloads or something like that. Was that him?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, somebody
talking about how he was paying thousands of dollars
in
hosting fees. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't matter how many people download your show; it won't affect the bandwidth or whatever. So don't expect any spikes on your show with me. But what I like to do is I like to have the guest host pick the topic. Now I threw at you a couple of ideas because I know you're a music guy, so I thought, oh, maybe he wants to talk about a band or music. And then I know you're sick of talking about podcasts, but I haven't done that on my show, so I thought, well, maybe you would like to do the worst of the best podcasts. But you gave me a third option, which I haven't covered on the show, and that is Star Wars, the Star Wars films. Why Star Wars?
Yeah, it's funny. At first, I thought music, because I'm really into the bands that I'm really into. And then I thought, who the fuck would want to listen to me dive deep into a Ween album that came out in 1997? I can't imagine there's an audience for that. So I'm like, all right, I'm not. No, there is, but they're never going to find it. It's ridiculous. I mean, I like Primus. I like Ween. I like NoFX. Like, no one's going to listen to this. And I didn't think you would know what I was talking about. So now I was thinking, well, it's got to be something a little bit more mainstream people can relate to. Because if we just talked about podcasts, chances are we're talking about shows no one's ever heard.
Which is your show, though. But that's your show. That's exactly
right. But what I do is I bring on clips and I introduce it and I break it down. This is more of like passing, oh, this show was good, this show wasn't good. So I thought, why not pick a topic that everyone knows? Everyone's seen these movies. They all have their own opinions on it. Thought it would make more sense. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan going back to obviously the original trilogy. So I thought that'd be a fun one.
Agreed. Okay, no, I'm a Star Wars fan too. Not a fanatic in the sense I don't own any books. I don't have any comics. I don't have any plush toys or anything like that. I have a couple puzzles, if that counts.
Same here. I like the movies. I'm not as big of a fan as I was when I was a little kid because it is made for little kids, but I enjoy it just the same.
It really is. Now, you don't have to say your age, so you can say I'd rather not say. But how old are you, if you don't mind saying?
I'm 42.
Okay, well, I'm 44.
Okay.
So we were raised that same atmosphere of the Star Wars when it was in its zenith. Okay, good. Okay, so let's first talk about our first memory of Star Wars. What was your first memory? What was the first thing you know about the films as a child?
Well, I can remember distinctly when Return of the Jedi came out. I remember waiting in line at the movie theater to go see that. And I had my little action figures and we were waiting out there for 2 hours for the movie. And we just stood outside in this huge line. I don't think that type of thing exists anymore. Thank God. Now you have a science and stuff. You can just go when the movie starts and watch it. But that would probably be my earliest memory.
Okay. That's a good memory. Mine was actually, I did see Empire. I was young. I was 5, almost 6, but I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theaters. And my first memory, though, of Star Wars was actually the toys. I remember my friend having the toys. I was just like, it was almost seeing those toys as a kid. Even as a kid back then, I knew that was really special. There was something special and different about these toys. And you had to be rich. So I never owned one Star Wars toy. Not ever. My friends had them. A couple friends had them. And my first film I saw was Empire in the theater. And I think it might have been the first Star Wars film I saw was Empire. And I'll just never forget the Darth Vader scene at the dinner table. Darth Vader sitting at the dinner table. He stops Han Solo's gunshot. And I remember being a young kid thinking, okay, well, that's it. You can't kill this guy. And that was my first movie. Yeah, that was my first movie experience. Like, you can't kill this guy with a gun. How are you going to deal with this guy? Yeah. So
it's a pretty badass movie, Empire Strikes Back. I remember seeing the original A New Hope in a drive-in, but barely. I was very, very young when we did that. But there was some special screening they had at a drive-in theater. The action figures, I know what you mean. They were really cool, and your buddy had the Millennium Falcon, or you had the AT-ATs or something. But G.I. Joes were so much better because you could move all of their limbs and their knees and everything like that. I don't know. G.I. Joes were better action figures than Star Wars were. But that's not what this is about.
It can be. Let's change of topic. G.I. Joe.
One of the things I hate is tangents on podcasts. So I'm okay. Right now.
I got to write that down. Tangents, Roger. Okay, so And I'm guilty of that sometimes. Now, I should explain I'll probably have a few first time listeners because of your audience. So I will say what we do on the show is we don't pick the best. It's very easy to say, hey, Star Wars is the best, or G.I. Joe's the best, or Weezer's the best, or whatever. Or Ween, sorry, is it Ween or Weezer? I can't remember. Who did you say?
Ween, yeah.
I don't know who they are. That's terrible.
See, I told you. That's why I didn't choose that. That would have sucked.
That's fair. So what we do is we pick the best of lists from bands, artists, films, franchises. But every list, no matter what the list is, we're going to have a pick that independent of each other that we think is the worst of that best. And so Star Wars, how that works is you would have to be living under a rock pulp culturally to consider Star Wars not one of the best franchises ever made. Whether you like it or not, it's what it's done financially, worldwide influence, theme parks, books, merchandise. Is there a franchise bigger than Star Wars?
You could maybe argue Harry Potter or some of these more modern ones, but as far as the longevity goes, starting in the late 70s and still going strong today, I don't know that you could find another one.
Okay, so that's what we're doing. So what we do is we're going to pick the worst film from this 9-film franchise. And Karl, you said you didn't want to do the 2 standalone films, so let's just touch on them briefly. What were your overall thoughts on Solo and Rogue?
I thought Rogue One is one of the best Star Wars films. It's made for adults. It was fun. It was good. There were some hokey things in there, but the fact that, a spoiler, everyone dies in the end was awesome. It wasn't Star Wars-esque, and I was surprised Disney put that out, because as soon as Disney bought Lucasfilms and the rights to Star Wars, I was very concerned about it being Disneyified, and that's why Rogue One, I think people were excited about that movie. Solo is just a fun romp. It's not a good movie, but if you go in there with low expectations, I had the lowest expectations. I didn't go see it in the theater. I waited till it came out and I could stream it, and I thought it was fun. I've watched it once, you know.
Yeah, I've watched it once as well. I saw it in Guam, I think. I'm in the Navy, and we did a port visit in Guam, and it was in subtitles, but still in English, but the movie itself was in subtitles. Same idea. It's like, I got nothing else to do in Guam, so I'll go see Solo. But like you had low expectations. I left thinking, I wouldn't mind seeing a part 2 to this. I kind of wanted to see more of the story, almost like a Mandalorian type story. I think that it's too bad it didn't do well, because I think it still could have had a fun story to tell.
It did so poorly that they put all the other projects on hold. They were going to do Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, which would be awesome because Ewan McGregor is great as Obi-Wan. That got put on hold. There were some other projects too. I can't remember what they were. But yeah, that movie tanked so bad that Disney was like, oh shit, we can't just keep popping these out every year and expect people to go to this. We got to take our time with it.
Now, I kind of echo your feelings about Rogue One. I know Rogue One is so well loved by a lot of people, maybe because of its more mature nature. But the thing that threw me off the most about it was right at the very beginning. I forget the guy's name. I apologize. The Latino actor. I forget the name of his character. But
we weren't even going to talk about this. I don't know. I didn't do any research on it. I don't know either.
But he shot that guy in the alley. He shot that guy in the alley. Remember?
Yeah.
And that threw me off. It's like, wait a minute. Who's this guy? Did he just murder somebody? So I was thrown off by his character the whole movie. I don't know why, but it put me on a track. I was like, I don't know if I like these characters. So when they died at the end, I was like, good, he's a murderer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. The character development in that movie was not good. I didn't care. That's probably why they killed everyone off, because you didn't really care about any of the people.
No, but apparently they're doing a prequel about that guy. Okay. So here we go. We're going to start off with we're going to do what
good, another Star Wars prequel. Just what everybody wants.
That's what they're saying. They're doing I think his name's Pedro or something. I don't know. That's a Mandalorian guy.
Your last Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we should make it known. If you're listening to this episode because you're a Star Wars fanatic, you think you're going to learn anything new from us, it's highly unlikely.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out to you, because you said you want to have some new listeners based on me being on the show.
I think so.
You should treat every episode as if someone's listening for the first time.
I agree.
That's another little tip from a podcaster to a podcaster.
I do that, and I do agree with that.
Discovering it. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, I appreciate that. Any tips you want to throw my way as we're going to say, hey, Ryan, maybe you should.
I know. I haven't held back so far, so don't worry about that.
Okay. All right. All right. So New Hope, and originally when it came out, it was just called Star Wars. It wasn't retitled The New Hope until a sequel was made. And what I've done here, Karl and listeners, is I've inflated with today's ticket prices for the box office to indicate just how big these films are. So if these tickets were sold today, it gives you an idea of how much box office draw these films would be. So New Hope came out in 1977, or Star Wars. It only had a budget of today's budget of $45 million, and it made $3.1 billion.
Yeah, is that international too, or is that
Yeah,
just
worldwide.
worldwide? Yeah, and you got to think Lucas had directed what American Graffiti.
And that
He was
THX.
not, yeah, he was not like a big shot guy. Harrison Ford was an unknown at the time. There were not, Alec Guinness was probably the only guy in there who's been in other movies that people
Yeah.
knew about. So it was not a big budget movie. And they took a chance. They took a chance on that one. And some of the early edits and early cuts of it were terrible.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the footage of that where this was the original scene. I was like, oh, they put a lot of work in the edit room to make this a good movie.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting first film because if you watch it knowing that Luke and Leia are brother and sister, it's kind of weird because we know.
I don't think they had that figured out at the time.
No, they didn't. I don't think they did. I think that's my non-fanatic theory that I don't think George really had an idea that they're brother and sister till part 2. So yeah, I saw
part two is even weirder though.
In what way?
That's where they kiss.
Well, I know, but no, they kissed in part 1, didn't they?
No, they kiss on Hoth, and they do it, and she does it to make Han jealous.
That's right.
Listen, I don't want to get too deep into this. I already sound like a nerd.
Too late. Well, we got to say something that's correct. Okay. So yeah, overall, this movie, it's the original, it's the OG, and I'm blown away by how much it made. When I did the adjustment for inflation, it's this third or fourth highest grossing movie of all time. I think Gone with the Wind is number 1. I can't remember what the other ones are. So it still stands today as for ticket sales, the biggest, one of the top 5 movies of all time.
Well, let's talk about why it was so groundbreaking. There were 2 main things, and this movie is phenomenal. There's 2 main reasons why Star Wars took off the way that it did. One is the special effects.
Yeah.
The special effects at this time in 1977, there were no space movies. Compare this to other movies that were coming out around that time. There were no movies where spaceships were flying around, looking realistic, blowing each other up.
No.
The special effects were outstanding. The other part was the character development of this movie, I think is overlooked. And I think all the other Star Wars movies, they don't spend a lot of time on this. And that's where they kind of don't do as good a job, is for some reason you really care about Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie to some degree and the stupid sarcastic droids. You actually care about these people and their plight and their mission because it's this old Western style of story arc where it's the guy that should have no chance of becoming the hero, and everything about it is gets you invested in who these people are and you're rooting for them. And that I want to point that out because that becomes important when we start talking about the prequels and the movies that came out more recently. It's like you need to care about the characters and want them to succeed.
Oh, well said. And I also liken it to like you ever play role-playing games on like the Nintendo or the Genesis or whatever? And
I have not.
Really?
I've definitely not done that. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's me nerding out a little bit, but it's always the farmer kid that saves the world or saves the planet or whatever it is, and that's kind of like I in some ways I think the original Star Wars or Luke Skywalker that's the original farm boy who becomes like the savior of the galaxy. So like you're saying that character development is, I think it's definitely very unique, and in some ways it overshadows what follows. But before we get into we're going to get into Empire if you're ready to go to Empire.
Sure.
Okay. What I find interesting, though, there's a huge box office, and I had to double check my numbers. Mm-hmm. There's a huge box office drop with Empire. So Empire came out 3 years later. It had twice the budget of $100 million in today's money. It still made $1.7 billion, but it made half of what Star Wars the original made.
Are you sure about that?
I double checked. Now, please, in the comments below, everyone, I'm sure I'll get attacked, and that's on me. But I double checked. It was $558 million of 1980 money. So yeah.
All right, we have a policy on WATP, and that is
ain't no fact checking.
So I'm just going to assume that you're wrong, and we're just going to move along because I'll say it right now: Empire Strikes Back is a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
It is an amazing movie. The way that look, the acting isn't great, so let's just get past that. All right, We'll get past the acting. But in order to follow up the original Star Wars and come out with a movie that's going to be even better than that movie was quite a feat at the time.
Right.
And Lucas made a really smart move. He brought in a co-writer. I can't think of the guy's name, Zemeckis or something like that.
Lawrence Kasdan.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he also wrote on episode 9. They
Yeah.
brought him in for another thing. Anyway, see, if you're a Star Wars nerd, you're like fucking pissed off at us right now. You can't listen to us. But that was a really smart move because Lucas had a vision, but he wasn't the best with writing dialogue. He wasn't the best with plot twists and how to create a compelling story. And Empire Strikes Back was definitely just the story arc, and everything about it was different than Star Wars and just brought you even more involved with the characters. And obviously it ends on a cliffhanger and things are not going well for our heroes. It's a perfect movie number 2.
I agree. I think I will honestly say no hot takes here. Empire is the best of all the Star Wars films. It has the darker edge. The bad guys are winning. It's a true middle act. Like even though there's an ending to the film, the story is really not over. It's one of those early sequels in the 80s where we were writing movies with the intention of we are going to have a third film whether you like it or not. Like this movie is going to have more. We have more to tell, and I don't think movies were doing it back then like that.
I don't know. I don't know how that worked. I mean, it seems like a lot of the movies, like Jaws was never meant to have a Jaws 2 or a Jaws 3D or.
That's what I mean. Like they had sequels because they were successful at the box office, but this was one of the first films was like, no, now we've got a real story to tell.
Yes, for sure. And of course, there's the big reveal with the Luke is the son of Darth Vader. And we didn't even talk about how Darth Vader was maybe the best movie villain ever. When Star Wars came out, that was another thing that made that movie is you have this movie villain that's fucking awesome. And the guy's badass. He murders people who work for him. You know, he's just so badass. And now you find out this big reveal. Oh, Luke is the hero that was made to be the hero. This is his father. And, you know, people our age don't appreciate that because we've always known that our entire lives. That's like it's no spoiler anymore. But at the time, that was a big deal that happened in the movie.
There's actually a clip on YouTube where you can actually somehow someone got an early audio recording or video recording. But it's of the reveal of Luke. I'm your father. No, I am your father. Whatever the Mandela quote is, I can't remember now. It's been changed. But yeah, there's an audience reaction. It's pretty cool to watch. It's on YouTube, and to get a real live like, oh my goodness, that reveal. What I also like about Empire, is that the dark edge to it, the character development, the heroes aren't winning. Luke gets his arm cut off. It's the theme that continues from part 1. The limbs. Everyone people get limbs chopped off. I think in every film. Is that have you know?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of that.
I don't know what it is about George Lucas and limbs, but he always has arms getting chopped off. So that was my first experience of Star Wars in the big screen, and double check. I'm telling you guys, double check those numbers. But Return of the Jedi comes out in '83, and they lowered the budget on this one. Funny enough, it actually was $77 million compared to $100 million on Empire, and it made even less. Again, $1.1 billion, which is weird because usually, if the movie previous is well received both critically and commercially, the people will come to. I bet you Return had a huge, opening weekend. But I think word of mouth may have diminished some of the returns over the following weekend. So $1.1 billion is nothing to laugh at with a $77 million budget.
Are you talking about all time though for these box offices?
Okay, so these are adjusted for inflation.
Reboots and stuff. No, but obviously they put out the special editions in the theaters later. Are you including that in this as well?
Yeah, and yes I am. And they didn't make that much more. It was like 150 to 200 million with some of the re-releases, but yes, this is overall their run in the theater, whatever edition.
That could be skewing this too. If we were looking at these numbers in 1985, they might all be very similar to each other. But now over time, the original Star Wars has gotten a lot more box office just for various reasons. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
Oh no, that could be part of the numbers. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Return?
So Return of the Jedi is obviously weaker than Empire Strikes Back. The major flaw that everybody knows about are the teddy bears and the fact that the teddy bears save the day. It kind of cheapens the whole thing because you have this guy with the Force going up against this, the Empire was so powerful, and you had Darth Vader and you had all of these, all of their spaceships and a new Death Star, and now these stupid Ewoks save the day, and it's still a great movie.
Yeah,
still a great movie.
I'm hearing myself. I'm hearing myself back on your end. I think I don't know if it's I'm talking too hot in the mic.
Did that just start happening?
Like last 2 minutes.
I haven't changed anything.
I don't know if it's. I'm coming through on yours a little bit, but you don't hear me.
No, I don't hear any echo or anything like that.
Okay.
If you want, I can leave and come back in.
Do you think that might?
See if that does it.
Yeah, just try that. Yeah.
Okay. Be right back.
All right. Well, yeah. Welcome back. Appreciate that. Hopefully that works. Imagine if you didn't come back. That'd be kind of awkward. Like,
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. I'm like, this show sucks. I'm out of here.
well, maybe it does, but I appreciate you coming back all the same.
What if I purposely sabotaged your audio and then just never came back?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I totally agree about the teddy bears. My understanding about the Ewoks is they were supposed to be Wookiees.
Yes, I did hear that. And then they changed it. And I think it had to do with merchandising, right?
Oh, I thought it was they couldn't find enough tall people, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And they had more little people. I guess they got more kids. It was easier to find kids and little people than it was to find 7
They couldn't just wait for the NBA to be off season to shoot those scenes?
I guess not. Oh, man. Yeah.
I did not know that. I always assumed, I did hear the rumor about it was supposed to be Wookiees, but I always assumed that because I was a little kid at the time, Ewoks were everywhere. They were toys everywhere. They became a cartoon series.
Right.
It was like, it seemed like it was all marketing and merchandising from the very beginning when they wrote those characters into the movie.
Well, I think when you watch the sequences of the Ewoks in their battle, if you were to replace all that fighting with the Wookiees, then it makes sense.
Okay.
If that makes sense. The damage that the Ewoks did, it doesn't make sense that they were able to, they're so battle hardened. But had the Wookiees been doing that kind of fighting, you would have been like, oh, yeah, that's believable. The Wookiees can take on stormtroopers.
I don't know. They were like ganging up on stormtroopers and jumping on top of their heads and stuff. It seemed like it would be how teddy bears would fight.
Sure.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
The frustrating thing about Return for me, other than the Ewoks, is the beginning sequence was so amazing with Luke coming in as a dark Jedi wearing the black robes. And even as a young kid, I geeked out. I was like, oh, he's totally embraced the Force. He's coming in totally like confident and battle hardened, and his face is all mucked up, and he's like older and wiser looking. And then he loses the black robes for the rest of the movie. I'm like, that was just like a gimmick or a disguise to fool Jabba. And I was like, I wish they kind of explored him tampering a little bit with the dark side before meeting his father.
Yeah. I didn't pick up on that. I will say the thing that's great about the movie is it introduced something that many Star Wars movies have done since then, and probably other movies as well. The ending battle sequence was 3 battles in one. You had the spaceship battle going outside of the Death Star to destroy the Death Star. You had Luke versus Vader in the sword fight on the spaceship. And then you had the gun battle going on the ground on the moon, where they're trying to shut down the force field. And it seems like every Star Wars movie has that now, right? Where there's 3 battles going on at once, and they all depend on each other, and it's always a last minute, oh, we saved this thing. No, now we can do this thing. And it seems like all hope is lost. And they do it. But to think about them doing that in 1983 and the way they pull that off is really impressive. It's probably the most impressive thing of the original series is the very end battle scene of, now it gets a little cheesy with, pulling his dad out and, you were right. Tell your sister you were right. That's like lame, but whatever. They had to end the series some way, right?
Why did they have to get a guy that looks so terrible? When they revealed that helmet, I was like, oof. He was like, even as a kid, I was like, that's Darth Vader. It's like they got a guy with a bloated face. It looked like his face had been underwater too long.
Well, he didn't look like Hayden Christensen, that's for sure.
Yeah, talk about
I don't see any similarity there.
Yeah, talk about film continuity. That's a big film flub there. All right.
I bet they wish they had that one back.
Okay, so let's roll into now. So the film ends in 83, and I remember being a kid and hearing about the Clone Wars. I think the Clone Wars were mentioned at least once in the film franchise. I think, Obi brings it up, I think, in the first Star Wars film.
Yes, he says that your father fought. I fought with your father in the Clone Wars.
And so there was this like this kind of like mysterious like, oh, there's a Clone Wars. The stormtroopers were like used to be good, and there's this is like old pre-internet talk. This is just stuff that you and your buddies would talk about or glean from books or whatever. And so we knew that there was this prequel thing that rolling around in George's mind. And as we got older, as I got older, as you got older, and we're like, when are these films going to be made? George is not getting any younger. Why are we taking so long to tell this story? And so when it was announced, I think it was 97 or something, that filming had started for the prequels. Me, like everybody else, I was extremely, extremely excited with the idea that we were going to see the genesis of the stormtroopers, of Darth Vader, of a young Obi-Wan Kenobi. What could possibly go wrong?
I was there opening night. I was also very excited for the Phantom Menace.
So what are your thoughts on 1999's Phantom Menace? The budget, very low budget, by the way, $115 million, and it made $1.5 billion.
Yeah, I'm not surprised the budget was low because it's all a cartoon. It was all really shitty CGI. And it's sad because the original series used a lot of claymation and animation and models, and they really had to do it before computers, and they pulled it off. Somehow these movies look worse. You got Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks looks worse than Pete's Dragon from 1979. It's so cheesy with the cartoons that are in the movie. I remember going to see that, and my brother, who's a huge Star Wars fan, him and I, we walk out of the theater, and I look at him just like, oh man, what did they do?
Right.
I was so disappointed. My brother still had adrenaline. He's like, no, it was pretty good. It's pretty good. Obviously, he's come around and realized that it's a pile of crap. This movie sucked because there is first off, the little kid who plays Darth Vader, what's his name? Anakin. The little kid who plays Anakin Skywalker is the world's worst actor. He's terrible.
Yeah, what's his name again? Like Lloyd something? I can't remember.
And the dialogue sucks and everything. But they spend an hour on Tatooine, this desert planet, doing just about nothing. Like, we're following these people around, and it all builds up to this pod race that's so boring. The whole thing, that whole section of it, I'm like, holy shit. This should have been edited down to 15 minutes. Let's get this kid off of this planet. Let's move on with the story. And it just took forever.
No, I totally agree. In fact, I have a quick treatment. I'll entertain it with you if you don't mind. Really quick for that trilogy. I think they should have done the taking the boy from the planet, getting him to the Jedi Council or to the school or whatever. That should have been 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Grab the boy. We've got him.
Sure.
He's met Yoda. I sense the dark side in this kid. And then part one would have been like Hogwarts School. It would have been watching him montage train with the Jedi. Can you imagine if we actually got to see Jedi classes? What a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Because the whole thing about the original Star Wars was we used to have all these Jedi, and now you're the last one, and you're our only hope, and you got to do this for us. And this idea that, oh, now we can see them in action. What are they actually doing to control the galaxy and keep order? So you could have had that. You could have had them going out on missions and different issues to come up. And there was very little of that. I mean, yeah, I think Yoda goes off. I can't remember which movie it is.
Well, I totally agree with the mission, because they could have ended part one with him. So Anakin being like 18 years old, graduating with his Jedi master, and they go on a mission. And that mission could have been hunting down and tracking down Darth Maul. And that would have been perfect. Darth Maul is causing chaos. They're given the order, go take care of Darth Maul, and that's the end of part one. Part two can still be the Clone Wars, but at the end of part two, so the first half of part two is the Clone Wars. The second half is Anakin's fall into the dark side completely after the Clone War, and then they have that fight. So that's actually the end of part two. Part three should have been, this is as geeky as I get. Okay, part three is this was my title for it, the Rise of Vader, and part three would have been, finally we get to see, why is this guy so feared? Why is he so dangerous? What kind of chaos did he cause that the rebellions even formed what they formed? We get to see kind of his mayhem that he creates, and then at the end of part three, because it leads into A New Hope, the end of part three would have been this is, indulge me. So the end of part three would have been Luke as an 8 or 9 year old boy. He's on the farm with his uncle, and he's working out in the dusty field. The wind blows, and he covers his eyes like this, or wipes his eyes, and he sees this shadowy figure, and it's Obi looking over, and then he kind of rubs his eyes again, and the guy's gone, and then that's it. That's cue the credits. We know that he's being watched by Obi. And then the next movie would have been A New Hope.
That would have been better continuity. I agree with you. Wow, you have it all figured out.
Well, I've had years.
I want to back up. I want to back up on one thing, because
please.
I do want to point this out, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on the prequels. They're terrible. But I will say Darth Maul was another missed opportunity. Everyone was geeked about this guy. He was a badass looking devil character. Oh, and then they made up the word Sith in these things, which never existed. They keep making up shit about the Force in every movie. Like, it does new things, and now it's in your bloodstream, and now all of a sudden you have Siths versus Jedi. Like, that was never a thing. Whatever. So you have Darth Maul, who has, I think, like 7 lines in the whole movie, of even that.
And he's not speaking them either. It's a different actor.
Well, who cares? So is Darth Vader. The point is this. No character development.
Right.
So this is the problem with the prequels, is that you know what these people are going to become. The only person you even care about is really Obi-Wan, because you already like Obi-Wan, and Ewan McGregor does a great job with that character. But you don't care about anybody else. And Darth Maul could have been like that villain that you're, like you said, like, build up this villain and have him be a badass. Instead, they just chop him in half before he has 3 lines. And it's like, oh, all right, well, there goes that. What's next? Okay.
It is so weird that I think that's probably the frustrating thing about the Phantom Menace overall, is that they had some great ideas that weren't executed, or they weren't dragged. Here's an opportunity to drag something out. I know the old saying, no, leave on a high note, or wanting more a little bit, but they gave us such a great character with such little screen time. It was a wasted opportunity. Absolutely. Darth Maul is the coolest bad guy.
And again, Lucas, he's terrible at dialogue. And the story where we got into the Galactic Senate, I don't know if that's what it's called, but it was way too much politics and way too much, like, I'm watching a filibuster in real time. Like, who cares? Like, we should be shooting each other in space in our spaceships. That's what this movie franchise is.
It's amazing that kids even stayed awake during some of those galactic meetings. Is like, holy smoke! I'm a full grown adult. I'm kind of, what are we doing? Spices? I'm not sure what's happening here. Trade routes? Like, what are we talking about?
I know. It got a little too up its own ass. All right, so then episode 2. Can I move the show along now? Do you mind?
No, do it. Go ahead.
Episode 2, I will sum up very quickly for us both.
Okay.
You have the world's worst actor in Hayden Christensen, and poor Natalie Portman, who had to try to work off of him. We're trying to show their romance blossoming, and it is so poorly executed. There is no way Natalie Portman, who's like the hottest chick in these movies, would be attracted to this guy in any way. He's such a raging asshole. He has no redeeming qualities. And the whole time you're watching these two in their little love affair, it's just like, this is stupid. This doesn't even make sense. This guy's just a douchebag. Why does she like this guy? She's a princess.
And what's with the little rat tail? The rat tail that he has on the side of his head?
It's terrible.
Is that
everything about Hayden Christensen is so poorly executed? He's a terrible actor.
Why was he? This is a major studio. This is a major film, and I'm not like, I don't work in this industry, obviously, but I wonder why it's so hard just to find someone that can act.
Well, I think part of it is, and you know this, the director has a lot to do with the acting performance that they get. These movies were poorly directed. They're poorly acted, poorly written, and poorly directed.
Then that's a good point. So I guess we give credit to, I mean, you're right. You look at somebody like Quentin Tarantino and what he pulls out of his actors. I don't know if you're a Quentin Tarantino fan.
And John Travolta's not a good actor, and we all loved him in Pulp Fiction. That guy sucks.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. To be fair, I guess to be fair to the actors, yeah. But it's interesting. I don't know if you watch sports, but I always feel this way about sports sometimes. Is like, how much of it is the player and how much of it is the coach? So are we giving enough credit to who are we giving credit to sometimes in these victories? Because you would just think a good player is a good player, a good actor is a good actor, no matter what they're given. But I guess the director does have that pull. I guess editing too, editors and what have you. So yeah.
Well, so that's where, again, Ewan McGregor is the shining light in all of these prequels, because he actually pulls it off despite having nothing to work with around him.
That's true.
It is not an easy gig that he has to make these movies interesting at all. And he does a pretty good job with it.
Agreed. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to Revenge of the Sith. I think this one is generally... I should say, sorry, yeah, Attack of the Clones. big drop off from Phantom. So it only made inflated. It only made 887. Did not break the $1 billion mark. It is the lowest grossing Star Wars film of all 9 by 200 to 400 million. So I think word of mouth destroyed this film.
No, what destroyed that film was a Phantom Menace, because nobody cared about it now. They're like, oh, this new franchise fucking sucks. So they've lost a lot of people with that first movie.
Yeah, and I think that will play into the newer trilogy as well. But
they did get rid of Jar Jar Binks though. They did make one good decision. They're like, people hate Jar Jar Binks. Let's get him out of the movie. And Jar Jar's just like, I'm not going to go on the mission this time. And I was like, all right, good idea.
All right, so Revenge of the Sith comes out. And the biggest, again, it kind of ties into my my treatment. Revenge of the Sith, what it suffered from, despite it did rebound a little bit. I think most people kind of agree it's the best of the 3 because it went back to that dark side. It ends on a dark note. It's even that, I will say, with Anakin getting injured in that fire sequence, it's brutal. Like watching somebody get burnt alive, it's pretty intense. It was the first one to have a PG-13 rating, I think, because of that.
Yeah, that movie, that end sequence was great. That movie sucks, but it is the best of the 3. And to say it's the best of those movies, not a compliment.
Sure, that's fair.
Not even in the slightest.
So again, it made 1.1 billion. So it did. I think a lot of people were just curious to see how Vader would be masked, because we saw in the trailer, the teaser trailer, that we were going to see Vader in his full outfit. So I think a lot of people came, but I was probably. This is why I left the theater disappointed, almost more disappointed, because I was like, oh, he did but we didn't see him do anything.
Right. And that's why Rogue One was awesome, because now here's Vader before we were introduced to Vader. We start to see, some of the cool shit that he's up to.
Yeah. And that was another missed opportunity. So overall, the prequels, some good ideas, some interesting sequences, but a lot of missed opportunities that we can't go back to.
The prequels are garbage. And people, if you've never seen Star Wars, the question is, you just start at 1 and go through 9. And the answer is always never watch 1, 2, and 3. Never, ever do it. If you were introduced to Star Wars, you said start at number 1. Would you watch the other 8 movies? I wouldn't.
But people have, though. There are people in our, because we're old, right? There are people in their 18, 19, 20-year-olds who were raised watching these in order.
That's stupid. You should never do that. That's a bad decision right there.
All right, so now let's jump ahead a little bit. 2015's Force Awakens, $278 million budget, and it shot out of the gate with a $2.2 billion box office. What are your thoughts on Disney's Force Awakens?
So I was skeptical, obviously. After seeing the prequels and seeing that Disney had taken over the franchise, I wasn't sure. So I didn't have high expectations. And I think that's a really important thing with all entertainment that you go to see. Depending on your expectations, you might think something that's not very good was pretty good. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought that they pulled off what was very difficult to do, which was breathing life back into Star Wars and rebooting it the way that we remembered. Now, the way they did it was by stealing the entire storyline of episode 4. They just said, that worked. Let's just do that again. So it's the exact same storyline, but the thing that they did with that was good is they got you back invested in the characters. The prequels, I never cared about any of the fucking characters. I did not give a shit. And that was the whole thing about the original series. So then episode 7, they introduced Rey and Finn and Kylo Ren and Poe. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can get behind these people. I'm interested. They did a nice job with the character development of Rey. And you're sitting there at the end of the movie going, I'm rooting for these people. I want them to win.
Right. No, I agree. We'll get it. I think for part 1 of a trilogy, yes, it's a very strong opener. It looks good. It sounds good. The costumes, the CGI, the
J.J. Abrams crushed it. You want to talk about directing being very important. J.J. Abrams, I think he wrote and directed it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he killed it.
Yeah, so I totally agree that out of the gate, it had an amazing. Here's the thing: it's set up for some amazing storylines that didn't quite come out for the other 2 films, i.e., Finn. Like the idea that a stormtrooper goes rogue. What a great idea!
Don't hold that against this movie, because Ryan Johnson, is that the guy's name who wrote episode 8?
Yeah.
He's the one who fucked it all up. This was not JJ's fault.
Okay, we'll
So
get there.
episode 7 was good.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. They set it up so that the next 2 could be outstanding.
So, so this is interesting though, because Rey, I was neutral about. I was like, I'm not too sure. I know it's not partly because she's the female protagonist, and I admit there's a part of me, maybe the old misogynistic part of me watching movies for decades, having the male lead like the Luke Skywalker. So it's hard to watch a female be the lead, but she won me. Her and Kylo Ren, Adam Driver. They both, their characters, as each movie progressed, I end up liking more and more. So retroactively watching part 7 again, I like the Rey character. I think she's fantastic. I think she did a great job in it. It was just, first I admit it was hard at first to be like, okay, we're watching the female lead take this film, but she did an amazing job.
I didn't mind having a female lead on it. I thought that she played it well, especially like meeting BB-8, and you did like, it was endearing at first. My problem with Rey and throughout the rest of the series is that she's always crying. Every scene, she's like teary-eyed. Like, all right, man up. You're the star of this. Let's go. What are you doing?
Fair enough. And well, yeah, that's, I guess what Did she cry a lot?
She does. It's crazy. Go back and watch any scene, and she's like crying. Like, Jesus Christ. Is that why they hired her? Because she can cry?
Maybe. I will say also the killing of spoiler alert. Yeah, the killing of Han Solo was it was pretty it was tough to like, that's a big character of my childhood just killed so haphazardly from his son. That was a good moment. There's a lot of good moments in that. Overall, probably, if it wasn't for nostalgic purposes, you could say that at this point The Force Awakens is the best of the films. I think almost, like, if you were to watch these completely out of the womb, not ever seen them before, I wonder how many people would like The Force Awakens the most if you watch these in chronological order.
Well, The Force Awakens has that J.J. Abrams. I never cared about Star Trek, but when J.J. Abrams rebooted that, I was like, oh, these are good movies.
Yeah.
Because of the pace of them. And The Force Awakens is very different as far as the pace. We said Empire was the best of the original series. Empire is boring as shit compared to Force Awakens. It's just go, 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 scene, and just shit happening all the time. You don't even get a chance to just take a break. It's just from beginning to the end, it's go time, which I'll give it credit for. It is entertaining.
So the next one came out 2017, The Last Jedi. This one divided audiences and critics. It made 1.4 billion, so it almost made, well, what's the math on that? Like 500 million less than The Force Awakens. I think that was word of mouth on this one. I think it's easy to say it's the worst one. Maybe that's your feelings. I think it might be. There's a lot to like in this film. I think there's a lot of visual that I really like. That Red Throne Room fight was a good fight sequence. I know the
best part of the whole movie for sure. That part's awesome.
The killing,
you finally see the Imperial Guards like be badass.
Yeah,
and they're just like samurais. They're like ninjas. It was awesome.
But I wonder.
The killing of Snoke was so stupid though. This guy's all powerful and all knowing, and he allows him to be stabbed by his own lightsaber just like that. Like, come on, dude. How is that? That's so poorly written. That's such a cop out when you're writing a movie to build up this character. Like, what is this guy's backstory? What's he going to be like? And then he just gets killed in this, like, for no reason, like so easily. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess none of that mattered.
It was weird, and I wonder why Rian Johnson. My understanding was he was given free reign. Like, you would think there would be some sort of, like, no, we have an end goal in mind here. Like, we want to give you creative, like, you watch the Harry Potter films, of course. I don't know if you enjoyed them. Oh, okay. Well, I forget the guy's name, but he's this Mexican director, Alfonso or something, but he's got a very unique visual style, and that's what the Harry Potter films did. They have an overall arc, but each director added their own, how they film films, but they didn't stray from the story, and I don't know why they...
First though, right? I mean, so Harry Potter already did have an end or was going to.
Yeah, fair enough. But you think
this one they didn't have it written.
No, but you think they would have an overall arc, that there's still the end game that we're going to. So it's weird. Like, Luke throws a lightsaber over his shoulder, everything gets changed, the scripts get burnt. Snoke dies. It's almost like Rian Johnson, in his own way, kind of just told Star Wars fans, haha, screw you. I'm going to be. That's kind of why I did enjoy some parts, because I will admit, as a viewer, because I'm not a Star Wars like fanatic in the sense, like, I wasn't heartbroken. It didn't upset me. It confused me a little bit. But there were times in the film, I will admit, that I was like, oh, okay, I have no idea where this is going. Now I actually legitimately don't know. Like, maybe Rey will go to the dark side, maybe Kylo Ren will go to the light side because it kills Snoke. There was parts of me that I admit I was actually wondering what was going to happen. I will say the casino or the freeing of those wild horses sequence, that was horrible. Of course, that was the worst part of the whole film.
Did I say Snope earlier? You said Snoke. Thank you for correcting me. Snoke was the guy's name, right?
Yeah, who's Snope? Snape? That's Harry Potter? Snope. Yeah, Snopes is that website, is it?
Snopes is the website. That's how unmemorable this character became. I don't even remember the guy's freaking name, and he was supposed to be this huge badass villain with a backstory. And instead, they had to bring the what's his name, the Emperor
Palpatine.
Back. Yeah, Emperor Palpatine back in Episode 9 because Ryan fucked it up so bad. Yes, the casino scene was the worst. A lot of social justice warrior bullshit going on where we're worried about animal cruelty. Meanwhile, entire planets are being blown up and that animal's getting whipped. Like, can we put this in perspective? What are we doing? Also, they destroyed Finn's character. So now we don't give a shit about Finn because he was just going to leave anyway.
He was horrible.
You have this Rose character who is just, you can't even argue the fact that she's the worst. I'd rather have 17 Jar Jar Binks in a movie than one Rose. And so what they do is they go on this crusade that does nothing for the plot. It has no basis. It doesn't change anything that happens in the movie. There's no reason for it. And it's like most of the movie is their stupid fucking going to the casino and saving the day because all these wealthy people who sell arms. It was trying to make all these political points, which was really frustrating to me. And the plot itself, if you just look at the overall plot, it's the worst Star Wars movie by far because the plot is we're chasing a spaceship. And so one spaceship is chasing another spaceship and they only have so much fuel, but they can't get any closer for some reason. So they have to chase each other in slow motion over a 2.5 hour film. It's like, dude, this is like an episode of Star Trek from the 60s. What are we talking about? We're just chasing a spaceship for 2.5 hours. And the person on the good guys can't explain what the plan is to anybody. That didn't make any fucking sense at all. She's like, you just got to trust me. You just got to trust me. Yeah, but what's the plan? You just got to trust me.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me the plan? I'm on your side. She wouldn't do it. So then, of course, he has to go out and try to figure out how they're going to, fix this. The whole thing was so stupid, so poorly written. And Rian Johnson had an agenda. He destroyed the whole post sequel or, whatever you call it, these 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
He kind of destroyed the whole thing because now I don't care about the characters anymore. He's ruined what we're trying to accomplish. Luke Skywalker is an asshole. It was so poorly done. So poorly done.
Okay, well, as always, your rants are amazing. I can't top that. So we'll move on to the Rise of Skywalker, the last one. JJ is back in the helm to try to right this ship before it comes into port. We know this is the end, the finale of the Skywalker saga. What are your overall thoughts on Rise 2019? And it actually made, here's the thing, it actually made less than Jedi. Last Jedi. It made $1.1 billion.
Okay. I mean, that might change over time. We'll see. We'll
Sure.
see what happens if they continue to reboot it and stuff. So I will say that they did two things in this movie, JJ did, to let the fans know that we fucked up and we're fixing them.
Right.
The first one was Luke Skywalker almost looks into the camera and says, I was wrong, which is hilarious because he's pretty much saying, we're sorry that Rian Johnson fucked this character up. We're bringing him back. We apologize. Luke Skywalker says, I was wrong. Like, okay, let's just throw out everything that happened, which was based all around him in episode 8. Great. The second thing was Rose is going to go out on the mission with them. And, Finn's like, Rose, you going to come? She goes, I have to stay back and do computer programming. And it's like, okay, sounds good. See you. I was like, yes, thank you. They Jar Jar Binks Rose and they made up for Luke Skywalker, which were very important things to do to bring Star Wars fans back into the fold. So I think that whatever J.J. Abrams had to clean up, and he had a lot of work to do, I think he did a very good job of bringing it back to what should have been this whole series, the trilogy. It should have been more like episode 7 than what episode 8 tried to steer everything away from. So he fixed it to the best that he could, right?
Well, you're right. My biggest complaint, and I know they just can't do this. I don't know why they can't, but my biggest complaint is I didn't want. We knew that Kylo would redeem himself, but I didn't necessarily want him to. And I kind of wish they would be brave enough to let Rey go to the dark side. If they're brave enough to have her be the female lead, be brave enough to make a female go bad. Why is it that she couldn't go bad? Why couldn't Kylo be redeemed and she goes to the dark side? So I thought that's where Last Jedi was going to go, that they would flip on us. Maybe be brave enough. I wonder why they... Is there a reason why they just won't be brave enough to say that one character just won't be redeemed? Because they just did the Darth Vader thing again. So I don't know why they couldn't just say... I don't know.
So you might know this better than I do. I heard that they had a lot of problems with the ending of that movie and that they changed the script a few times and had to go back and reshoot it a few times. I think they rushed the movie out because they had to hit some deadline. So I think that eventually, I think they probably tested it. They probably tested it with audiences, and audiences just want the easy, you know, the bad guy redeems himself and the hero saves the day and everything's good at the end, because it was like a cop out the way that the whole thing ended. It was too perfect.
And that
especially because the Emperor has all of these Star Destroyers. He's got thousands of Star Destroyers just stashed away on a planet. This is insane. So you have all these Star Destroyers, and then for some reason, because of the formation they're in, they're not allowed to shoot at you. It's like, well, then what's the point of having Star Destroyers? They're just sitting there.
That was,
like, it was cool looking. It was neat, but there were some flaws with the plot in this one. It was a little weird.
It's that classic, when the main villain dies, nothing else works. Like everything's connected.
Right.
Yeah, like everything somehow is connected to his ability in the Force. So okay, the Star Destroyers crumble and collapse. It's a classic magical evil force. You take care of the main bad guy, everything that's under his control collapses. Lord of the Rings did it. All these big movies do it. Yeah.
Right.
Their space force should have destroyed the rebellion force that came in.
Yes, easily. It shouldn't have even been a contest. But that's the whole thing. It's the underdogs and the underdogs winning, and that's what we loved about the original Star Wars movie, was that these were just a ragtag group of rebels who decided that they didn't care for dictatorship. Governor Cuomo, you're next. And so they decided to fight against it, and were victorious in that. But yeah, this movie was overall really good, super fast paced, tons of shit happening. Almost every single scene, if it was an original Star Wars movie, that would have been the main scene in the movie. Right. Almost every scene was like a crazy, like, whoa, that just said, whoa, that just said, whoa. And plus the other thing too is the odds of all these things happening for the rebellion, like they never should have pulled any of these things off. No. Every single thing was like 1,000,000 to 1 shot, and they just kept doing it over and over and over again.
It would have been interesting had they let Abrams just do the whole trilogy.
Yes, it would not interesting. It would have been better, much better.
Right.
Abrams obviously had a better vision for this and understood not only what Star Wars fans want, but what this should have become based on that original trilogy. And I was always excited. You talked about being excited for the prequels and the Clone Wars. I was always excited about 7, 8, and 9, seeing what happens with Luke and Leia and Han, and what happens to these characters as they get older. And now there's a new group who have to come in. And one of the things that they fucked up in this series is they never really explained how after they took down the Empire, all of a sudden there's a new thing that's even bigger. It's like, well, then what are we doing if destroying Darth Vader and the Death Star and the Emperor isn't enough to take care of the evil in the universe? Well, then maybe evil just is always going to exist, and we should just try to live with it and just try to figure out our own way, right?
I agree. Well, they have to make another. They're doing another Star Wars saga. It's coming.
Well, they're going to introduce all new characters, right?
Yes.
It's not going to be any part of this anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to just quickly say what you think and what I think is the worst of each of the trilogies, again in order of release, and then what is the worst one overall. I think we've already kind of hinted at a couple here and there, but maybe our choices will surprise one or the other. So of the original trilogy, which is we'll take turns. I'll start with this one. So how I'm basing this on, this might throw people off. I'm not basing this on artistic quality or anything like that, or what it meant to people, or what started the whole thing. But I'm basing this on, if I had the 3 in front of me, which one would I put in last? Like, which one would I want to put in last to watch?
Yep.
I think for the sake of having fun, A New Hope, though it's the original OG and it introduces all the characters, I think if I just want to watch a fun film, I think Return of the Jedi is more fun to watch than A New Hope. So I'm basing this kind of... And the Star Wars movies to me are about fun. Are they fun or not? Not about artistic quality or acting or even anything else. So at the end of the day, I think A New Hope is the least fun one to watch for me.
All right, I could see that. I could make that argument as well. I do have the special editionized versions of the movies. Somebody came in and they created widescreen HD versions of the movies, taking out all the crap that Lucas put in
Oh,
to ruin the movies, like the CGI Jabba the Hutt and all that kind of
right.
crap. And I was able to get all three. The only two I grabbed were episodes 4 and 5. So for me, Return of the Jedi is the worst of the original.
I'm not trying to be a hot take. I was leaning towards that, but it's just
No, you made a good point.
Okay.
I appreciate your rationale, and I agree with you. That's the slowest of the movies, and it's probably Return of the Jedi is better in a lot of ways. Yep, I understand.
All right, so now the prequels. Which one of the three for you?
Obviously, Phantom Menace, and it's not even close. Phantom Menace is a hot pile of shit.
Agreed. I think it.
We talked about Tatooine. We didn't really talk about Jar Jar Binks, which is just hot garbage. And there's so much just dialogue. Everything in that movie is the opposite of a Star Wars movie. They're just trying to explain what's going on with politics. And it's like, oh my God, I don't care.
Yeah, and I also like how George Lucas was racially sensitive with all of his characters as well.
Yeah.
All right. Lastly, for the newest trilogy, I think we might differ on this. What is your least favorite?
Are you fucking kidding me? Come on. You can't say, all right. I mean, you know what my answer is. Go ahead. Let's hear your rationale.
Oh, man. I'm not trying to be a hot take. It's just I didn't quite say it as much because I wanted to do the reveal here, but I actually quite enjoy Last Jedi. I really do.
Wow.
Yeah, I really quite do. It actually makes me feel the most emotional of the three. Maybe because it's so different. Maybe because
it's angering. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
that's an emotion, right? Anger.
I think it's because my experience going into the film, I heard all the terrible reviews. So I went in this with completely, this movie is horrible, but I've seen every Star Wars movie in the theater. I couldn't break tradition despite what people were saying. I didn't know why they were saying what they were saying. So I went in like, oh, this movie's going to suck. But the moment Luke threw that lightsaber over his shoulder, I was like, what is going on here? I guess I was more entertained by the idea of how chaotic it was. Other than the milk drinking scene of that alien creature, yeah. that was horrible. But I actually quite enjoyed it, though it wasn't a perfect film. I don't know, but so I think the worst for me, unfortunately, is Rise of Skywalker.
Okay,
I'm gonna good film, but just yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say it's expectations. So you even just said it. You heard it was a bad movie. You went in there. And that's why I said that about Solo. That's not a good movie, but I heard it was a bad movie. And so when I watched it, I was like, well, it's not that bad. It was fun. And I didn't know going into, I'm sorry, I get these all confused. Is it Last Jedi is episode 8?
Yeah.
I didn't know going into Last Jedi anything. I think I went opening time. And I was so blown away at how they undid everything because I was so excited they built up these characters and they rebooted the series and then he undid everything. And
so it was interesting. Yeah.
As a Star Wars fan, I was very depressed and I knew I was going to go see the final episode to see what J.J. Abrams was going to do. But now I have low expectations because now I don't care about these characters anymore. So while I enjoyed it, it's not as if I was like, oh my gosh, I need Rey to come through. Like, I'm like at this point, I'm like, whatever. Finn's a piece of shit. I don't care about Poe. Rey can go eat a dick. So yeah, it definitely changed how I felt about the final trilogy.
Yeah, so I think I'm going off first time viewing experience for sure. Because the Last Jedi, the reason why it was of all the films of the last three, it was the one that kept me wondering. I actually didn't know where we're going. So as a movie goer, I was like, oh, actually, I'm legitimately wondering what's going to happen next. Whereas with Rise of Skywalker, I was like we talked about, nothing brave happened, and so maybe I appreciate a little bit of being a little bit brave, and a little bit cavalier with the franchise. It actually excited me a little bit, even if it wasn't executed the way people wanted it to. The fact that I left wondering, or left thinking I had no idea that was going to happen. As a Star Wars watcher for all these years, it was the first time I left thinking that was different.
All right, this is your show, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to prove you wrong. Okay? We talked about how stupid it is that the Force has new powers every single movie.
Sure.
This one is the worst one of that. For some reason, Luke is able to transport himself, but he's actually a hologram. He's like Tupac Luke. He's able to transport himself by levitating on his planet.
Yeah.
And he goes and he fights the bad guys, and they can't kill him, but he can kill them. And then because he does that, he dies, which is what happens when you do that. Like all of this was just brand new bullshit that they just made up.
It was amazing.
And it was so stupid. That was, and you want to talk about not knowing what's going to happen next. You're right, because it was so convoluted. Sure. Also, that was the movie where Princess Leia became Superman. How do you overlook that shit?
You don't.
Princess Leia's out in space. A human being does not survive in outer space. I know there's a lot of problems with science when it comes to Star Wars, but doesn't survive in outer space. And then she turns into Superman, puts her arms out, and flies into a spaceship. Like, holy shit, that's stupid. As soon as that scene happened, I'm like, oh, this movie's fucking bonkers. I don't know who greenlit this.
I just sorry, I love it. No, everything you're saying is correct. Everything you're saying is correct, but it didn't. But it didn't elicit that emotional response. To me, it was like, okay, here we go. It's a Monty Python Star Wars. Here we go. What have we got? What's
yeah.
I guess I just enjoyed the chaos that it was. Yeah. My fandom of the films is such that I wasn't emotionally affected by it, but I guess I was a little bit excited that it was so different. Maybe. I don't know. All right. So overall, I guess we probably both agree on the worst Star Wars film. Maybe not. Actually, maybe we don't. So for me, the worst.
Not, because we only agreed on one so far.
That's true, actually. Yeah. So for me, the worst one of all three franchises is the Phantom Menace.
Totally agree. The Phantom Menace, all it had to do was be mediocre, and Star Wars would have continued to thrive. It almost destroyed Star Wars. It got really close to ruining Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it is a terrible movie for many more reasons than we've even talked about.
Right, of course. Well, it's things that everyone knows anyways. That's the thing. Everyone knows the reasons, but yeah. Yeah, that's we don't often with my guest hosts agree with the picks, but I think this one was a pretty obvious overall.
It's a no-brainer though. Holy shit. If only Lucas, first of all, he shouldn't have written and directed it, but if only he had waited for CGI to get better. That was one of the big problems. You have like everything is a cartoon in this movie, and it looks so terrible. And all you needed was another like 10 years or so, and it would have looked amazing.
But in his mind's eye, in ours in 1999, that's what he was waiting for. He felt it was that was the time to do it. That's what he said, where I've now waited till CGI can do what I want to do. So in his mind's eye, he thought this is as good as it gets.
Terminator 2 looked better than that movie. And what year did that come out?
91?
94? 91?
Yeah. That's crazy. All right. Well, that's it. So thank you so much, Karl, for coming on the show. It really was a pleasure. It was an honor. Thank you for directing the show too. Overall, how did it go? What's some other pointers you can give me? This is your job, so you got any pointers for me?
Yeah, not enough drops. What are you doing, man? You got to have a soundboard and start hitting something. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I thought about. It's funny. I thought about that, but no. The thing about drops, I've listened to some podcasts that try to attempt it. It's a talent within itself, because you can't just make sound effects for sound effects' sake. It doesn't work. I've heard it on podcasts where it doesn't work. I will say your name drop one is one of my favorite ones. So thank you for using that on me. That was actually quite funny.
You're welcome. You know, rather than ask me my opinion, I think that we should ask Bonnie McFarlane what she thinks about it.
It's boring as shit.
Well, she might not be a Star Wars fan, though. So
that's true. That's true. Thank you, Bonnie.
I've enjoyed it, Ryan. I enjoy bitching and moaning about Star Wars because I've spent so many hours of my life watching these films and being outraged by the ones that suck and entertained by the ones that are good. So thank you for having me on so we could do this today.
And do you want to just plug your own show and any projects you want to the listeners of my show, where they can find you?
Who are these podcasts? You can find in any of your favorite podcasting apps, or you can go to whoarethese.com, and that's where you can find the show, but also links to our Patreon, our YouTube, our subreddit, our Discord server, Twitter, all the places where people are talking about Who Are These Podcasts. Also, I host a show called The Creep Off. The Creep Off is a true crime podcast about creeps, by creeps, and for creeps. And basically, it's a contest show where the listeners are involved. Vinny Paulino and I each bring a creep every week that we present as the creepiest creep. And then the listeners, based on our arguments, get to decide, go to our website and vote. And we keep score. And then when you lose, you have to spin a wheel of consequences. And so it's a lot of fun. There's a lot more interaction with the audience on that one. So check out thecreepoff.com. and who are these.com.
I wanted to ask, thank you, Karl. That's great. Thank you. And I wanted to ask before you leave, it's amazing. You have a Discord channel and a Reddit channel, which you did not create either of those things, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So you have fans do that for you, and there's huge activity. What's if you don't mind, just what's the overall feeling that this community has been created around something that you've created? And it's also interesting that people tear you apart within the Reddit and the Discord channel. What's your overall feeling on the?
Not as much as I would have thought, to be honest with you.
Okay.
No, it's amazing. Growing up an Opie and Anthony fan and being a part of that Reddit, I was more of a lurker than someone who participated. But the shows that I liked always had communities like that. And people, and I'd love to listen to an episode and think what do other people think about this, and be able to go in and see the conversation that's going on around it and see if they agree with me. So that part of it is amazing, because now I can do a show and get instant feedback and see, we just did a show a couple of weeks ago that was very controversial because of the guest host that I had on.
Yes.
And just to see Discord and Reddit and Twitter blow up over this and all the controversy that it sparked makes it a lot of fun.
All right. Well, hopefully I don't get torn up too badly in the Reddit or the Discord, because I am going to post the show here. But it's been a real pleasure, Karl, to meet you and to have you on the show.
Ryan, I'll tell you this: if you do get torn up, it's because they actually give a shit.
Oh, okay.
So it's not the worst thing. When they ignore you, that's really the worst thing that could happen.
Well, it's par for the course. Either way, it's win-win, I guess.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much, Karl, and I hope to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
You bet. Take care.
Am I actually going to leave now, or do we just end the show?
Well, let me just stop recording. I just want to do proper